So now that they're all painted and hardened a little bit, I'm going to put these awesome rear roller bearing holders on to the rear roller, and then we're going to put the rear roller into the frame following that. So you can have a couple of blocks. I've seen a couple of blocks being used to put under the roller like this. Stand it up on that. You can play around that way. I made myself a little table. It's got a hole in it, carpet, a carpet and a hole in it. So basically it just allows me to play around with the rear rollers nicely. Now, the thing with the rollers is that there's two different types of bearing holders. There's one with adjustable capabilities and there's one with non-adjustable capabilities. Now the one with the adjustable capabilities goes opposite the chain or the drive side. So if you're looking at the roller, the longer side is that chain side. So he's the one that gets the 3 solid screws, and then we've got the adjustable one, which goes onto the non-chain side. So basically we're going to put a quick bit of grease in the shaft where we're going to want the bearing to get onto. Really messy. You can clean up a little bit of that excess there. Just a bit on top. So get rid of that. Now, on the non-chain side, so we want the adjustable side. We're going to put that, line that up on there. There's not really a lot of room for error here. A lot of it's pretty easy to line that up. I'm just going to get my old rubber mallet and just gently tap that on. See how we go. I've seen other people use sockets, but because I've greased this up, I think everything's in tolerance. I measured the shaft and the shaft was correct size. I might grab a socket after all. Okay, so the reason I decided to grab the socket was because this was going down the shaft. That's fine, but it's obviously just got a little bit of a sticky spot there, which I will stick a little bit of grease into the top of that bearing. I think on the other side I might put the grease on the bearing as opposed to the shaft. I think that's a better idea. But anyway, that's there. And I've got my socket. Now I've used a 17 mil for this particular bearing. This is George's Japanese bearing, so it may be slightly different. But just double check before we go home, all the way home. This is the non-drive side. We're putting the adjustable side bearing holder on it. We're correct. Okay, so got that directly on that inner ring of the bearing. Seems to want to have a decent hit down. I'm going to hit it a little bit harder. still needs more. So I'm not banging and bashing into the microphone. I'm going to pause and get this on. So, getting this guy on. It's straight, it's aligned, but it's struggling to go on. I measured it. Everything seemed kosher, but it's still really tight. And we're just a little shy of getting in there, and the bearings seem to have popped up a little bit. So what I'm going to do is, my first thought, being a bloke, was to go and get one of these and hit that down a little bit harder with this as opposed to the rubber mallet. Might get a bit more purchase on it. Okay, so trusty old hammer, good old trusty old hammer, 17mm socket, get it right into the middle of the bearing, tap it down, a little bit harder but not stupid hard than what this, and it was just enough, because that is now sitting quite perfectly, and she's spinning like she should. So I'm fairly happy with that. The bearing is still just a tiny bit underneath the surface there. It all looks and feels really good. Okay, we're now right to put this guy over like that. Still think I would feel more confident with sitting on a couple of blocks. So I'm actually going to chuck a couple of blocks underneath this guy. Push those blocks in, and that feels a little bit sturdier for me. Happier about that. Okay, this time we're going to put the other one on, which is the 3 normal bolts. That guy is going to go on the drive side, as we've said. Now, if you've already put in your Woodruff key, you need to take that out carefully and put that aside. That little guy will be used shortly, but he's going to be in the way if we leave it in there now to try and get that bearing past it. So this time I'm going to put a bit of grease on the bearing. So it's going on the bearing instead of the shaft. Well, actually, as well as the shaft. Stick a little bit in the bearing there. Just wipe that off. And I'm going to put a little bit on the shaft too, on the head. Not too much. Okay. Take that grease off my hands. And line him up. Because this thread comes through here, we do need a couple of blocks here like this, and we need one more block. Okay, so what I've done here is I've just got 2 pieces of block either side, and then one on top. So he is. And I'm just going to hit that piece on top as square as I can in the middle. Back in there. Okay, I think that is all we need. That's on there. beautifully. In fact, if anything, it's on there too far because our bearing is still around there. So what I need to try and find is a socket that I can put over that. Okay, so I'm using a gear puller to take this guy back off, nice and gently and nice and slowly, because that bearing had popped out above there. But now what I'm going to do is, because that's leveled out now and that's at the same height, so hopefully I can have a bit of a better luck this time and get that down without lifting up the bearing. So, okay, needs to be below the woodruff key slot, and it's not yet, so clearly we need to go down further. Okay, that felt good. Alright, and I think that bearing's okay there. It's fairly flat. Plenty of room for the woodruff key. So now you can see that's on there pretty well, and that's about the clearance you get underneath. So that is the rear roller bearing holders. The rear roller bearing holders put on. Turn around your rig that you've got set up, that you've got assembled. Grab your woodruff key, align your woodruff key, okay, these are an interference fit, so they go in quite tight. Might help if I use my right hand. I've got them greased up, so it's just a matter of getting that lined up and tapping it in with a hammer, double checking it's all aligned. And that is a fully assembled rear roller. So we've got our bearing holders on there, they're spinning around beautifully. They're flush with the edge of the bearing holder. We can get rid of our hammer at the moment. He's been well used, and that's that.